a man who lost his wife. Rather careless. And he was saying that he was very sorry about this to a friend of his at the work. And the friend said, well, you miss her, do you? He said, yes. He said, I miss the talk in the evening. So he said, well, buy a budgie. He said, a what? He said, a budgerigar. You know, a little bird. He said, buy it because they talk very nice and it'll cheer you up no end. So he saw him a couple of days later. He said, you get the budgie? He said, yes, I did, actually. He said, does he talk? No, he said, he doesn't talk at all. Don't he? That's unusual. He said, well, I'll tell you what to do. He said, buy him a mirror. When he'll have a look at himself in the mirror and probably start talking to himself. Try it. He said, well, I will. They met the next day. He said, you get the mirror? He said, just got the mirror. He said, is he talking? No, not a word. He said, I'll tell you what to do. Buy him a bell. That'll do the trick. A bell. He'll sort of nibble about with his beak, and he'll talk all right. Buy him a bell. So I saw him a couple of days later. He said, get the bell. He said, yes. He said, is he talking? No, not talking. He said, I'll tell you what to do. Buy him a little ladder. Maybe he's a bit liverish. That's why he's not talking. Get the ladder, and he'll run up and down the ladder, and he'll talk. So he saw him a couple of days later. It was 3 days, actually, a long weekend, I remember. And he said, is he talking? He said, no, he's dead. He said, he's dead? Yeah, he's dead. Cool. He said, he did say something just before he died. He said, what was it? He said, food.
Good morning everyone, how you doing? It's Paul here from Unusual Things. Now this morning we are in a place called Combe in Exeter. Right down on the south coast, southwest coast I should say, the north part of that, if that makes sense. And we've come to find the final resting place today of that legendary actor Terry Thomas. Some of you may just remember him as the man with the gap between his teeth. But he always portrayed like posh toff like characters in his films and things like that, predominantly in the 50s and 60s really, but obviously he was around a little bit later on. Had a bit of a sad ending to his life in terms of financial difficulties and so forth, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that real soon. The church today is St. Peter, and it's beautiful. I'll show you that. We're going to have a look around. I'll tell you about Terry, and we'll find his final resting place. If you like the video today, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free, does not cost you a penny. And of course, hit that notification bell and you'll be notified as to when new videos come out. It's a beautiful location here. I will turn the camera around and show you, and then we'll get on with our finding of the final resting place of Terry Thomas. Look how beautiful the landscape is here. Look, amazing scenery. Okay, so I don't know whether or not there's a service going on in here, but we will try and pop our head round the corner, see if we can have a little look, shall we? underneath are deposited the remains of Anthony Frank. Can't quite read that. Visitor's book. Put under there unusual things. As you do. There you go. Nice little look around the church there. Beautiful little place. It's always nice to get in these places and have a little look around. Right, we'll carry on now, shall we? Terry Thomas, born Thomas Terry Hoar Stevens, 10th of July 1911 to the 8th of January 1990, was an English character actor and comedian who became internationally known through films during the 1950s and 60s. He often portrayed disreputable members of the upper classes, especially cads, toffs and bounders. Using his distinctive voice, his costume and props tended to include monocle, waistcoat and cigarette holder. His striking dress sense was set off by a 1/3 of an inch, 8.5mm gap between his two upper front teeth. Born in London, Terry Thomas made his film debut uncredited in The Private Life of Henry VIII, 1933. He spent several years appearing in smaller roles before wartime service with Entertainment's National Service Association and stars in battle dress. The experience helped sharpen his cabaret and revue act, increased his public profile, and proved instrumental in the development of his successful comedy stage routine. On his D-Mob, he starred in Piccadilly Hayride on the London stage and was a star of the first comedy series on British television, How Do You View, 1949. He appeared on various BBC radio shows and made a successful transition into British films. His most creative period was the 1950s, when he appeared in Private's Progress, 1956, The Green Man, 1956, Blue Murder at St Trinian's, 1957, I'm All Right Jack, 1959, and Carlton Brown of the FO, 1959. Terry Thomas was born Thomas Terry Hoar Stevens at 53 Lichfield Grove, Finchley, North London. He was the fourth of 5 children born to Ernest Frederick Stevens, managing director of a butcher's business at Smithfield Market and part-time amateur actor, and his wife Ellen Elizabeth Stevens, née Hoar. As a child, Terry Thomas was often referred to as Tom, the diminutive used by his family. He led a generally happy childhood, but believed his parents secretly desired a daughter in his place. By the time he reached adolescence, his parents' marriage had failed, and both had become alcoholics. In an attempt to bring them together, he often entertained them by performing impromptu slapstick routines, reciting jokes and singing and dancing around the family home. The performances seldom worked, and his father became increasingly distant from the family. In 1921, Terry Thomas began to nurture his distinctive well-spoken voice, reasoning that using good speech automatically suggested that you were well educated and made people look up at you. He used the speech of the actor Owen Nares as a basis for his own delivery. Terry Thomas became fascinated by the stage and regularly attended the Golders Green Hippodrome to see the latest shows. It was there that he developed an interest in fashion and adopted the debonair dress sense of his hero Douglas Fairbanks. Terry Thomas attended Fairbanks School in Hendon Lane, Finchley, which was a welcome escape from the stress of his parents' breakup. When he was 13, he transferred to Ardingly College, a public school in Sussex. He excelled in Latin and geography and briefly took up drama. The latter subject led to his expulsion from the school after his frequent inappropriate use of ad-lib during lessons. He also took up a position in the school jazz band, first playing ukulele and then the percussion. He also often performed comedy dance routines to the band's music. In February 1956, Terry Thomas appeared on Desert Island Discs and chose 2 songs from his technical hitch routine as part of his selection. Later that year, he appeared in his first film major roles, Charles Bortflower in The Green Man, and Major Hitchcock, a charlatan military officer on the take, in Private's Progress, directed by the Bolting brothers. By 1983, with his medical bills at £40,000 a year and no longer able to work, Terry Thomas' financial resources were dwindling. He and his wife sold their dream house and moved into the small cottage in Spain, once owned by his former wife, Pat Patalinsky, which she left to him in her will on her death in June that year. Shortly afterwards, he worked with ghostwriter Terry Dorm on an autobiography, Terry Thomas Tells Tales. Although the first draft was completed by late summer 1984, Terry Thomas refused to release the manuscript and continued making alterations, but never completed his copy editing. The book was finally published after his death. By 1984, Terry Thomas was increasingly depressed by his condition, and when he was interviewed that year, he admitted that one doctor said, "I've got about 4 more years to live. God forbid, I shall probably blow my brains out first." In 1987, the couple could no longer afford to live in Spain, so moved back to London. They lived in a series of rented properties before ending up in a 3-bedroom unfurnished charity flat, where they lived with financial assistance from the Actors Benevolent Fund. Richard Bryars, one of the first visitors at the flat, was shocked by the change that he saw. Sitting there motionless, he was just a mere shadow, a crippled, crushed shadow. It was really bloody awful. On the 9th of April 1989, the actor Jack Douglas and Richard Hope Hawkins organised a benefit concert for Terry Thomas after discovering he was living in virtual obscurity, poverty and ill health. The gala, held at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane for 5 hours and featured 120 artists, with Phil Collins topping the bill and Michael Caine as the gala chairman. The show raised over £75,000 for Terry Thomas and Parkinson's UK. The funds from the charity concert allowed Terry Thomas to move out of his charity flat and into Birdsbridge Hoar Nursing Home in Godalming, Surrey. He died there on the 8th of January 1990 at the age of 78. So there's all the information there about Terry Thomas. What an amazing man he was, and such a funny actor as well, great comedy timing. Sad really what happened to him towards the end of his days, with financial ruin and his health of course, and having to move back from Spain, and relying upon help to just get a roof over his head. And it's really, really sad when you see anyone that goes through that. It doesn't matter who they are in life, but especially someone that's built up such a reputation and such a career really, to then have to go through that. Okay, we'll go and have a look now and see if we can find his final resting place. Okay, so Terry Thomas was of course cremated and his ashes are interred here. And I've been having a good look around, and you know what? I think I found it. It's quite a nice little stone really. Thomas Terry Hoar Stevens, 14th of July 1911 to the 8th of January 1990. Loved by all, or still laughing. So there we have it, the final resting place of Terry Thomas. Very, very funny man. And it's a shame, like I said, how his life ended really. But bless you, Terry. Thank you for all the laughs over the years. And even today, people are still laughing at your great performances. There we have it, final resting place. Terry Thomas, great man. If you watched any of Terry's films at all, if you remember him as a performer, please leave your comments down below. And of course, if you like the video today, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, it's absolutely free. And hit that notification bell as well, and you'll be notified when new videos come out. Thank you, Terry, for keeping us all entertained over those years, and even now to these younger generation that may watch these money movies. And I will see you all from a beautiful Exeter on the next one. Take it easy.